Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Charger 360, telling the stories of the University of New Haven. I'm J.W. Stewart, along with Bruce Barber. Bruce, how you doing today?
I'm doing so well because I'm so excited about this next booking because this is moi.
Yeah. Yes.
This is my booking.
Yes, this is another megawatt star that you've been able to land on Charger 360.
Exactly, and it's not just because I'm in the Department of Arts and Sciences, and our guest today happens to be the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. No, it's just a good booking, J-Dub.
It is. Well, we'll give you credit, but we'll give
Thank
credit.
you.
We'll give Shaily Menon, who is the Dean of the College of Arts and Science, credit for being here. Shaily, it's nice to have you here on Charger 360. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, especially after I saw the lineup of superstars you've had on this.
Oh,
Yep.
this season 2 is just defying all expectations.
It is. It's like the dream team here.
It is the dream team.
Shaily, tell us about where you're from and your path to the University of New Haven.
So I was born and raised in what used to be Bombay and now Mumbai, India, and I, loved learning all kinds of things. So one of the real sort of pivotal moments in my life was after 10th grade. So in India, you take a nationally normed exam, and then that sort of decides whether you're going to go on, what path you're going to go on to. So whether it's going to be the arts and humanities or if it's going to be the sciences. And right from then, I protested. So I said, why do I have to pick? I want to do both. But that wasn't an option. So my dad sat me down and said, look, he didn't have words for interdisciplinary and things like that, but he had the wisdom to help me understand that sometimes these divisions are academic or, administrative, and for convenience, they're not really, to divide knowledge up into pieces and so on. And so he said, you have a decision to make. You have to start with something, so you can't do both. So if you would like to start with the sciences, because that's harder to, gather all the equipment and things you need to learn that, and then continue to do the other stuff. That you'll be learning this stuff your whole life, So that gave me courage, and here I am. I'm doing all kinds of things.
And when did you get into academia? Or academia, however we want to pronounce it.
Do you mean administration or in?
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
So I never left. So I love higher education and learning so much. I stayed in college my whole life.
That's a good move. Yes, I tried. They made me leave. So you stayed up until obviously this moment, but
Right.
It's got to be. So did you start was it teaching
Right.
first and then
So
administrative?
the path. So I started. I completed my doctoral degree, and then I had a postdoc at UMass Boston, and then I got a faculty position, and went through the tenure track, assistant professor, associate professor, and so on. But before I even had tenure and promotion to associate professor, that semester, I was sort of basically, invited to be department chair because the situation was really dire, and that isn't something I would recommend to anyone. But I call myself a reluctant chair, but things had a life of their own, and before you know it, here I am, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. So.
And so you've done so well, you've literally written a book on how to be a dean. We actually have a picture of it we'll put up in the monitor wall. So you want to be a dean, and there's your name.
Look at that.
So tell us the story behind this book.
So I wish I could say I wrote the whole book, but I have an essay in it, and I co-edited the volume with my colleague, Kate Conley. We were both on the board. I'm still on the board of an organization called the Council of Colleges of Arts and Sciences, so CCAS, and they had a regular panel as part of their annual meetings and professional development called "So You Want to Be a Dean?" And so the idea was to kind of demystify the process and invite more people to consider leadership positions and so on. And there was a publisher in the audience one time, and they reached out to us and said, we'd like to publish a collection of essays. So each of us wrote an essay, and it's really about our journey, into administration and leadership, I like to call it. And then we invited several other people who could share their stories as well.
So you want to be a dean?
That's a great title.
It really is. Because it's like, I don't know about you, J-Dub, but like when you were in school also, wasn't it like the dean was, woo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually, again, like being called to the principal's office, you usually want to stay away from the dean's office.
But what would you say, so if someone would want to be a dean, what's a good dean doing?
So I would say it's really about nurturing talent and inviting faculty and staff to work with you, to be innovative and have our students thriving. And we want our faculty to thrive as well. So there's a model of leadership that really resonates with me. It's called distributed leadership. So it's less about leadership from the top, where one person is the only person making all the decisions. Rather, it's very much engaging the people who are sort of on the ground, have a finger on the pulse of what's going on, and working together with them. So collaboration, if I had to choose a middle name, that's what it would be.
So in addition to being an author, you're also an artist, which I guess we shouldn't be surprised when you're the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. You're a painter, and we have some examples of some of your watercolors, oil paintings.
I have an example of a watercolor and some acrylic and oil paintings. So this is part of that story of lifelong learning and continuing to find ways to have an outlet for creative expression and learning new things. Sometimes I think I have just enough skill to be dangerous here.
No, these are cool.
Yeah, that's I call that Reflections of Venice. I happened to be there as part of visiting our campus in Prato, and so I'm very inspired by nature. I love taking walks and hikes. East Rock Park, you saw a picture of that. So. And then I take pictures of the changing light. So suddenly there'll be like a golden light on the rock, and then 2 minutes later it's gone. And so I take those pictures, and then I felt this kind of longing to find, inspired by them, to create, an interpretation of those. So I happen to live in the Arts District in New Haven, across from the Creative Arts Workshop. So I'm a regular there taking classes.
No, that's fantastic, and I think so. I'm glad we get to tell the story of you. It's funny. I've been in meetings where you've talked about doing your paintings, but I think the advantage of having a conversation like this is that our students you're modeling for our students that that thought of lifelong learning, and that you could and should always continue to be interested in new things and looking at things differently.
Yes, absolutely. That's what feeds my soul and keeps me going. So if I were told I couldn't do something, I would rebel, I guess.
I should wear my Jackson Pollock tie today, just for you,
Look at
Shaily,
this,
right?
yeah.
Jackson
I
Pollock
like
used to
it.
throw all the paint on the canvas.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Oh, J-Dub.
that's about all I remember from art history once upon a time, Jackson Pollock. But those were beautiful.
He did those splatter
He did, right?
paintings,
Just throw the paint on the
Right.
canvas. And
Yeah.
It was interesting, you were talking about us before we came on the air, that those paintings are not in your office.
No.
Tell us where those are, and tell us what artwork you do have in your office.
So those are sitting around at home or at the Creative Arts Workshop, depending on whether the paint is drying or not. So like I said, I'm still learning. But what I have in my office, so when I first arrived, we put a fresh coat of paint, inspired by our university colors and so on. And then I asked for art on the wall, and I said I would love to have student art. And we have little plaques or cards that mention the student and which year they were in and what class they were taking.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to get some of that from
Yes.
my office at
Yeah,
the radio station.
absolutely.
I would have to take down some of those pictures of me, though. That would be...
Courage, you can do it.
So, Shaily, one of the things we do, I think this is, again, a good forum for being able to communicate with potential families that would join the University of New Haven family. And so what would, and I think a lot of the process of when a student is looking for a place of higher learning is it's about fit, right? And so what would you say to families that are considering the University of New Haven, specifically the College of Arts and Sciences, what kind of a student is a good fit for that?
So I was part of the branding campaign, which was another highlight of my time here. And through those focus groups and talking to students and so on and alumni, that picture emerged of our students with a sense of purpose, with drive, and they're doers and want to make a change in their communities and in the world. And so that's one of the things I would say is this sense of belonging as part of a community that really cares for their success, regardless of what their journey has been. I've always believed that higher education, we shouldn't be gatekeepers of knowledge, knowledge now is everywhere, so it's really about how to think and what questions to ask, not so much what the answers are. And so I've believed in having very low barriers to entry into higher education, having very easy on-ramps and off-ramps depending on what's going on in people's lives or in their careers, and almost just-in-time learning of different modules or skills, or with this rapidly changing landscape of tech and all this other stuff. So I feel like we embrace this kind of notion of meeting the students where they are, as a campus community, among the faculty, among the staff, working together, helping the students realize their potential, their passion, their aspirations, instead of kind of thrusting a traditional model of learning or this is what you must know and that kind of thing. And then I'm really proud of our strategic plan. That was the other exciting thing I've been involved with. And so there are several priorities, including creating a transformative experience for students and other things, but one of them is market responsive programs, because that's on the mind of students and parents. And I always say we're not preparing them for their first job, we're preparing them for a lifetime of learning. We're preparing them to create the careers of the future, because the jobs that are around now weren't around 10 years ago, and now you could even say 5 years ago or 2 years ago. So who knows what's going to be around in the next few years, and so preparing them for that.
We got about 2 minutes left here with Shaily Menon, who is the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences here at the University of New Haven. So you mentioned we collaborate with our students, they collaborate with us. As a dean of one of the 5 colleges here at the University of New Haven, how much collaboration is there between each college?
That's a great question. So there's always been a desire for collaboration and a certain amount of collaboration that was happening, but we, working together with all the deans and other folks in the provost's office and so on, we've just in the past year or two, we've been able to create a structure that allows for this kind of collaboration and supports it, and then also allows for recognition of the contributions of the different departments and faculty, because everybody's doing a lot of work. So to add something without any kind of recognition of the effort that's put into it, becomes problematic. So we have the University Interdisciplinary Collaborative, known affectionately as the Collaborative. And we had an existing program, biochemistry, that is now sits in the Collaborative. It was a collaboration between 2 colleges. We launched a new bachelor's degree, which is in game design and interactive media, which is a collaboration among 3 colleges, and then also a master's in information science. So also collaboration, yeah.
Don't you hear all this? You just want to go here.
You do, absolutely, Absolutely.
Wow.
I have one more question for you, Shaily. You say you love learning languages. How many languages do you speak, and what language are you learning now or next?
That's a really good question. So I used to be able to say I speak at some level 6 or 7 languages, but there's a caveat. If you don't practice them and speak all the time, they get rusty, you know. And so, but I have found that as soon as I'm immersed in that culture or that context, then it comes back. So, yeah. So I speak a couple of them pretty fluently, and then some I'm familiar with.
I'm pretty much rounding out my English
Yeah.
at this point.
Real quick, give us a list of the languages that
Yeah.
you speak.
So English, Hindi, national language of India. Marathi is the language of the state Mumbai is in. French, Spanish, and then Portuguese. So
Impressive.
I will say, je peux un peu français. And donde está la biblioteca?
Where's the library? Yeah. I think we all learned that in school at one
I
point
did.
in time.
I did. I retained a lot.
Very effective in the real world.
Yes, it is. I'm always at the library.
I would say, where's the bathroom is more.
Oh,
That's
yes.
another good one.
Is that el baño?
And in Portuguese, you would say, onde fica o banheiro? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, now I'm lost.
See, we educate and entertain here on Charger 360. and in any language, thank you for being here, Shaily.
My pleasure.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you for having me.
Shaily Menon, the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences here at the University of New Haven. And that'll wrap up another edition of Charger 360, telling the stories of the University of New Haven. For Shaily, for Bruce, I'm J-Dub.
Au revoir, mes amis.
Sayonara.